Gratitude is only for God, the Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and mercy be upon Muhammad, the trustworthy. I seek refuge with God from the accursed devil. In the name of God, the most gracious, the ever merciful. Ladies and gentlemen, we are studying the preliminary verses of Surah Al Baqarah, or the chapter of the cow. We were discussing the third verse of this surah. It mentions some key characteristics of those people who were blessed to receive the guidance of the Quran. It was said, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, those who believe in the unseen and establish the prayer. That is, those who profess faith without beholding and are diligent in prayer. It also says something else, which we have already studied in detail, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and spend out of what we have provided them, that is, spending in our cause. In the classical Arabic of the Quran, such self-evident linkages are generally omitted because certain indicators within the text make them clear. Therefore, such ellipses should be explicitly unpacked. We are no longer accustomed to this style in our language. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and spend out of what we have provided them. This is not the usual spending that we do for our homes, businesses, or loved ones. Rather, it refers to what is spent in the way of God. Explaining my exegetical note on this, I have already mentioned that the entire religion actually rests on these two pillars. In other words, a true relationship with the Almighty can be established only when prayer becomes the very essence of our lives, and a genuine relationship with fellow human beings becomes possible only when we spend our hard-earned wealth in the way of God for the help of His servants seeking His pleasure. Then comes وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ, and those who believe in what has been revealed to you and what was revealed before you. Here again, we see that the Quran refers to the Israelites in its unique style. Their fault was that they became prejudiced in matters of truth. The Almighty had chosen them. They were the descendants of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. Ibrahim's progeny was granted a privilege greater than any other nation on earth, and even among his descendants, this favor was first granted to the Israelites. As we go on, Surah Al Baqarah will inform us of the favors granted to the Israelites. The reality is that no other nation can compete with them in this privilege. Many times I have expressed my opinion regarding nations, specifically how the Almighty selects different nations for different purposes, but this selection is based on their worldly knowledge and performance. It is possible that a nation is selected to excel in the natural sciences, while another gains superiority in the social sciences, and yet another finds excellence in metaphysics or other disciplines. However, the Israelites and the Ishmaelites were chosen for God's own mission, that is, calling people towards the truth. It is quite similar to how He selects certain individuals as prophets. This selection bestows upon the prophets a distinction shared by none other. The world has seen many scientists and wise men, but the prophets stand apart. A similar honor was bestowed upon the descendants of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, among the nations. However, rather than becoming the supporters and bearers of truth, they became its adversaries. Their error was that as long as prophecy and revelation continued among them, they did manage to fulfill their duties to some extent. But when God raised the final prophet among their brethren, the Ishmaelites, a prophet like Moses, in whose mouth He placed His words in the form of the Quran, they rejected him. In contrast, most of the Ishmaelites professed belief in him, whose noble qualities are being discussed here. These are not exclusive requirements. Rather, they are the characteristics of the group that first accepted divine guidance in the form of the Quran. They were prepared to believe without demanding direct vision of reality. They began to establish prayer and to spend in God's cause. It is important to note that they were not deeply familiar with the Israelite prophets. The Quran tells us that they had heard about those prophets, but they did not consider belief in them an essential part of their faith. When the Quran affirmed the prophethood of the earlier Israelite prophets and declared that no distinction could be made among them, saying, "La nufarriqu bayna ahadin min rusulih," we make no distinction between any of his messengers, the Ishmaelites did not show any prejudice and professed faith in what was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, along with all that had been revealed before him. No racial or national prejudice came in their way. They neither looked down upon anyone nor boasted of privilege. They acknowledged the truth exactly as they perceived it. Therefore, I have written, the implication being that, while disregarding all prejudice against it, they accept the truth and acknowledge it in that capacity. They did not face the psychological barrier of accepting a prophet from their own nation and rejecting one from another. Let me tell you that this attitude is not entirely absent from our community. The truth is that many sects have emerged within the Muslim Ummah. These sects often form under the influence of a particular scholar. Subsequently, many others arise who endorse his specific interpretation. Then it reaches a point where people blindly follow the scholars of their sect, refusing to listen to other opinions. Ideally, everyone should be regarded as part of the greater Muslim Ummah. All scholars and groups should be viewed favorably. While it is natural that we may agree with one scholar and disagree with another, or take more from one and less from another, still, every scholar deserves respect, be it Abu Hanifa, Al-Shafi'i, Al-Malik, or Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Each is our Imam, or leader in jurisprudence. The scholars of Deoband, Bareli, or the Ali Hadith schools are all our scholars. Even the Shia scholars are part of this Ummah. Truth demands that all of them be regarded with respect. All should be accepted as Muslim scholars. However, we may accept their opinions when they are based on sound knowledge and reason and are closer to the Quran and the Sunnah or the prophetic tradition. We may politely set aside the views we find incorrect and present our arguments respectfully. Recently, I urged Muslims to recognize that it is essential for us to regard the various Muslim groups as brothers, as integral parts of the same Ummah. Once we accept this, we should not entertain extreme views concerning them. I realized, however, that this appeal provoked fierce reactions from many quarters. This is the outcome of the kind of upbringing we receive, in which we are taught to withhold respect from differing opinions and to avoid seeing others as our own, disagreeing with a sense of belonging, showing respect, arguing politely, with reason and with evidence. These are practices we have lost. They have become things of the past. A similar situation prevailed in Arabia at that time. The real issue with the Israelites was the selection of the Ishmaelites. They could not reconcile themselves with the idea that the Ishmaelites had now been granted this privilege and that the final prophet had appeared among them. Would they now have to follow the Ishmaelite prophet until the last day and the book revealed to him? Would the Quran now be the ultimate criterion for all people? They were not prepared to accept this. The Quran has made this matter abundantly clear. On one side are the companions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who take guidance from the Quran and also accept what came before it, ma unzila ilayka, what has been revealed to you, and they also believe in wama unzila min qablika, what was revealed before you, and indeed, they have firm conviction in the hereafter. On this I have written a note, that is, they do not merely believe in the hereafter. The Quran has changed its diction here. Earlier it used the word iman or belief, whereas here it employs the term yaqeen or conviction. That is, they do not merely believe in the hereafter, they are certain of it, free from every trace of doubt or speculation. Belief is one thing. For instance, I may believe in God or in His prophets, and that is good. True and genuine faith also has its own place. But when do the demands of genuine faith become a real test? When the idea of the Yawm al-Qiyamah or Day of Judgment is placed before a person, if one harbors doubt about accountability in the hereafter, then the true spirit of religion has not been fully realized within him. Thus, the Almighty points out here that had these people possessed genuine faith in the hereafter, they would not have acted as they did. Hence, this verse highlights a defining attribute of the believers, that they are certain of it, free from every trace of doubt or conjecture. After writing this, I have inferred that it is precisely for this reason that no prejudice can prevent them from accepting the truth, and no indifference can stop them from fulfilling its demands. If a person truly believes in accountability in the hereafter, it becomes impossible for him to deny manifest truth out of prejudice. Such a person knows that rejecting the truth would deprive him of the path leading to paradise. It is equally impossible for such a person to remain indifferent to the truth, forgetting that he has a master whose directives he must follow, that he must perform righteous deeds, improve his life, purify his soul, cleanse himself, and prepare for the blissful world of the hereafter. He knows what the future holds for him, and he cannot afford to lose it. Only firm conviction in the hereafter guarantees constancy and perseverance in action. Therefore, the Quran emphasizes this point. They have firm conviction in the hereafter. Ulaika ala hudan min rabbihim wa ulaika humul muflihun. It is they who are upon guidance from their Lord, and it is they who shall succeed. That is, they are exactly upon the same path that has always been the path of true believers. Being on God's guidance means that they have fully internalized the guidance innate within human nature, understood it deeply, recognized it, and made it an inseparable part of their lives. They also examined the path of the believers who came before them, understood it, and followed it. In this way, they stand within a marvelous tradition of leaping towards truth, accepting it wherever it is found, and making it their most cherished possession. That is, they are precisely upon the same path that has always remained the path of the true believers. It is they who shall succeed. On this, I have written a note. The word falah, or success, signifies that kind of success which a person attains after immense effort and struggle. But once achieved, it brings blessings and favors so abundant that they exceed all expectations. When a person succeeds after a long and difficult journey, indeed, when he attains supreme success beyond his own anticipation, this is what the Quran calls falah. This falah manifests partly in this world, but its ultimate and complete realization shall occur after the Yawm al-Qiyamah, or Day of Judgment. In the Quran, it generally refers to felicity in both this world and the hereafter, and it is they who shall succeed. Then the Quran says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, those who disbelieve, it is the same for them. Whether you warn them or do not warn them, they will not believe. Now, in contrast to the successful group, it mentions the unsuccessful group. On one side are the believers who received guidance from the Quran, and on the other side are those who chose to reject this book. Some points need to be understood here. Those who have decided to reject this book, it is the same for them, whether you warn them or do not warn them, they will not believe. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Let us first understand the shift in discourse from this point onward. I have written from these opening verses of the surah, or chapter, begins both reassurance for Muhammad, peace be upon him, and admonition for his adversaries. In other words, the messenger who is receiving this book is warning the people and carrying out itmam al-hujjah, or completion of proof. Inzar, or warning and itmam al-hujjah by God's messenger, is no ordinary affair. The Quran itself describes it as the bearing of a heavy word. Inna sanulqiya alayka qawlan thaqilan. Indeed, we will cast upon you a weighty word. It is, therefore, a tremendous responsibility. Imagine the difficulties faced by people like us who preach religion only within a limited domain, and then consider the scale of struggle encountered when God's prophets appear. We have witnessed this in the case of God's prophets, especially Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Quran tells us that this is indeed a very difficult and extraordinary struggle. Prophets experience many ups and downs. It is not easy to confront such challenges. Hence, God reassures Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at many points in the Quran. The Prophet would, of course, reflect upon the immense efforts he had undertaken, his tireless striving, his constant efforts, his going about, knocking on every door, and yet these people refused to listen, even though he was their sincere well-wisher. A true preacher of truth naturally wonders whether there might be any shortcoming on his own part. In such a situation, the Almighty reassures the Prophet, peace be upon him. The direction of discourse becomes clear from this point onward. This forms the preamble to the surah. In it, the one who must now recite it before his audience and warn them through it is addressed, though in a very subtle and refined manner. This can only be discerned by someone endowed with literary sensitivity. From these opening verses of the surah begins both reassurance for Muhammad, peace be upon him, and admonition for his opponents. Thus, what is meant to be conveyed to him is this: if people are not paying heed to you, it is not due to any fault of your own, nor is there any deficiency in your preaching. Therefore, you should remain assured. In fact, it is the corruption within their hearts that has made them enemies of the truth. Imam Amin Ahsan Islahi writes, they can now be punished in accordance with God's law after their persistent denial of the evident truths of his religion. This is a reference to the Sunnatullah, or the unalterable divine practice, concerning guidance and misguidance. They denied and kept on denying. If, in the process of denying, the time comes when God turns away his grace, it means that the concerned individual, nation, or group would face his judgment. This behavior has rendered their hearts incapable of being melted by the truth. Their eyes can no longer see in order to learn lessons, and their ears are closed to the calls of truth. We see, but what is sight if not to take a lesson? We hear, but what is hearing if we do not hear the call of the truth? This spirit is lost in them. Muhammad, peace be upon him, should now have no hope that they will ever mend their ways. Only God's wrath and punishment, which they are certain to face, now await them. Who are these people described here? The Quran describes two groups of people. On the one hand are the believers, or the Prophet's companions, who have accepted the truth as it is, and on the other hand stand the people who have decided to reject the Quran. Explaining the verb used in the expression, Inna ladina kafaru, I have written, the actual words are, Inna ladina kafaru. Here, the verb kafaru connotes decision. In Arabic, verbs are used in varying shades of their meanings. Some characteristics are unique to the Arabic language. After spending years rehearsing this language, a person comes to know them. He understands the various applications of verbs, nouns, adjectives, etc. Sometimes the verb may be used to imply only the initiation of an action relating to that verb. An example of this is in Surah Al-Qadr, which is chapter 97 of the Quran. We began sending down this Quran. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Similarly, it is possible that the verb is used to convey the intent of the action or the completion of the action, or it may imply the result of an action. These are the various aspects of a verb, just as a word may have multiple meanings. Ascertaining the meaning of a word in a sentence depends on factors such as the construction of the sentence, the context, the result, etc. Similar is the case of a verb. Sometimes it can convey the intent of the action, the result of an action, or its beginning, or even the decision to do an action. Here in this verse, the verb is employed to connote a decision to act. It refers to people who have rejected the Quran and Muhammad, peace be upon him, out of sheer arrogance and obduracy, even after being convinced of the veracity of both and in no way want to accept them. Here, the Quran describes this very group by the expression, Inna ladina kafaru. The outcome mentioned in the subsequent passages makes this meaning clear. Those who have decided to reject this book. When do we employ this description? The sense this expression conveys is that the truth has become amply clear. The Quran explains how this happened within this very surah. It explains the different ways in which the truth was made clear to them. In other words, how did Itmam al-Hujjah, or completion of the proof, take place for them? All of this will become clear as we move ahead in this surah. Their hearts understand and accept the truth. They have discovered what the truth is and where it is to be found. However, they have decided not to acknowledge the truth. Of course, it is pointing to the Jewish scholars and leaders in a subtle way. These were the people who recognized Muhammad, peace be upon him, soon after his advent. They knew that he was the prophet foretold in their scriptures, who was prophesied by Moses, peace be upon him, before leaving this world, and their forefather, Ibrahim, peace be upon him, supplicated for his advent, and Jesus, peace be upon him, proclaimed the good news of his appearance. All the prophets made the path clear for his appearance. The Jewish scholars knew that Muhammad, peace be upon him, fulfilled these prophecies. The Quran makes it clear that they recognize Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a father recognizes his sons. الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم. They knew the promised prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the promised book, the Quran. Despite this, they decided to reject them. When someone decides to reject something, it makes no difference to present evidence or caution him. The person simply refuses to accept. These are the people the Quran places in contrast to the true believers. The case of the believers is that conceit and prejudice do not become hurdles in their acceptance of the truth. They warmly welcome the truth. But the case of the disbelievers was the exact opposite of this. It was not that these people had some genuine misunderstanding. Rather, they had knowingly decided not to accept the truth. They were opposing Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Quran out of sheer arrogance and obduracy, even after being convinced of the veracity of both, and did not want to accept them. Their decision to disbelieve was final. This is the attitude which the Quran terms as kufr, or deliberate rejection. Please understand this very well, given the use of Inna ladina kafaru. One type of rejection is when someone denies something. Let me give an example. Let's say that I do not believe that the cosmos is eternal. I say that it has a beginning. An opponent of mine insists that it is eternal. In this example, I have rejected this notion. I am a disbeliever. This is a religious issue, but this is true of many other things in the world. Every disagreement is, in fact, a type of denial or disbelief in something. For example, a villager somewhere might deny the Earth's revolution around the sun. Not accepting any physical or spiritual reality, or rejecting a premise, etc., is described in Arabic as kufr, or denial. It is an ordinary word. In this sense, it can be used to describe any kind of denial or skepticism. Thus, the word kafir, or one who denies, may refer to any person who denies anything. This word is still used in its general meaning. For example, the word Rasul, or messenger, is a Quranic term with a specific connotation, but it still retains its literal meaning, an emissary or an envoy. An envoy from India will still be called Rasulul Hindi, the Indian envoy. Words continue to be used in their common literal meanings. This is also the case with the word kufr. In its ordinary literal sense, kufr can be used for any kind of denial in Arabic. It can be the denial of a scientific truth or any other reality. However, in a special sense, kufr, becomes a serious crime in the religious realm, deserving God's curse and earning His wrath. In this sense, kufr does not simply mean to deny or to reject something, rather, it means denying something out of arrogance and obduracy. The truth in this case has become conclusively clear. Therefore, the Almighty metes out a stern punishment for this kufr or obstinate rejection. It is God's law that He punishes only when the truth has become conclusively clear. مَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. He says that He never punishes a nation unless He sends a messenger who conclusively communicates the truth before they are punished. Saying that a person is disbelieving out of arrogance and obduracy and therefore becomes a disbeliever and thus deserves punishment, this takfir or declaring someone a kafir can only be carried out by God, the Almighty. Although the word kufr or disbelief is used in its general literal sense even in the Quran, examples of this will follow in this surah. However, when the term takes on its specific connotation, it implies earning God's curse, la'natullahi ala al-kafirin. After God declares someone to be a kafir or disbeliever, an offender, they become deserving of the punishment of hell forever. Thus, this is a declaration of kufr or disbelief from God Himself. They are now deemed criminals. Kufr becomes an offense when a person knowingly denies a truth that the Almighty requires us to accept. This verse of Surah Al Baqarah discusses such kufar or disbelievers. Here, they are mentioned briefly. Further explanation will follow. Those who have decided to reject this book. Here, I have touched upon another point. I already stated that the verb in this ayah connotes a decision. The second point is that a transitive verb always requires an object. The object is implicit in the context, and hence it is a given, therefore it is omitted here. The object in this case is the book, because the discourse begins from ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book of God, there is no doubt in it. It is a guidance for those who fear God. The same discourse continues until the ones who rejected are discussed. Who are these people? Obviously those who rejected this book, the Quran. It says, سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. It is the same to them, whether you warn them or not, they will not believe. خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ وَعَلَى سَمْعِهِمْ. God has set a seal on their hearts and on their ears. Needless to say, God sets this seal according to His law, His sunnah, or divine practice. This is implicit throughout the Quran and is also explicated in many places. When the Quran explains this sunnatullah or divine law concerning guidance and misguidance, we should understand that all things happen according to this law. The Quran makes this very clear, thus people must keep it in mind. I have explained this in the verse we are reading. خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ وَعَلَى سَمْعِهِمْ وَعَلَى أَبْصَارِهِمْ غِشَاوَةٌ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. God has set a seal on their hearts and on their ears according to His law, and on their eyes is a veil, and a great torment awaits them. When will this torment come? On the day of judgment. The Quran has informed us about it. Please see the note on this in Al-Bayan. The actual words are وَعَلَى سَمْعِهِمْ. I have written that the word sam or hearing used here is a verbal noun and hence is used in the singular form. The expression خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ already precedes this. The root qalb or heart is a noun and hence we have its plural, qlub. All genders and numbers are inherently present in the root at the same time. In the presence of an indicator in the text, one does not need to be concerned about the gender or number of the word. One may use the pure root, وَعَلَى أَبْصَارِهِمْ رِشَاوَةٌ. God set the seal according to His law. There is a note on this, according to the law, mentioned in several places in the Quran. According to this law, when a person shows arrogance in the face of the truth, arrogance against the truth being the first cause here, and deliberately denies it, he is given respite by the Almighty. It means that God does not punish at the very outset. He grants respite. Then, if he does not mend his ways during this period and benefit from the respite, that is, he is repeatedly urged to reflect both internally and externally, God has put extraordinary arrangements in place to establish his case. Prophets are only the last of the many arrangements put in place. The process of itmam al-hujjah, or completion of the proof, merely reaches its culmination through them. So, it is not as if God has left effective arrangements in our world for times when prophets are not among us. The truth is made clear in different ways. Then, if he still does not mend his ways during this period, his heart and mind are sealed. Here, we witness God's glory and his reverence for the truth. He does not immediately take them back, but he closes the door of guidance through which they could have found the truth, accepted it, and inherited paradise. Then, if he still does not mend his ways during this period, his heart and mind are sealed, and in this manner he is punished in this world by the Almighty. This closing of the door to guidance is only a prelude to punishment. According to God's law concerning guidance and misguidance, the first stage is that the heart becomes corrupted as if by rust and is sealed from further guidance. Nothing can penetrate it after this. It means that God has now turned away from that person and handed him over to evil, allowing him a free rein to engage in rebellion. In such a situation, his nature and taste become so perverted and his faculties of comprehension so contaminated that he only relishes those evil things that feed his perverted nature. Sinful actions become his sole fascination. Virtue and piety, however much reasonably presented to him, are alien to his nature, and he feels an aversion to them. He is never ready to listen to virtuous words with the willingness and openness of heart required for faith. After this, I have provided several references from the Quran that explain this divine law. See Surah Al-Nisa, Surah number 4, verse 155. Al-Araf, Surah number 7, verses 100 to 102. Al-Nahl, Surah number 16, verses 106 to 108. And Al-Saf, Surah number 61, verse 5. In these passages, we see how God sets a seal upon the hearts. Let us now go through the translation of the passages we have discussed. They are spending for our cause from what we have given them, and they are believing in what has been revealed to you and in what was revealed before you, and in reality have a firm conviction in the hereafter. It is they who are rightly guided by their Lord, and it is they who shall succeed. On the other hand, those who have decided to reject this book, it is the same to them. Whether you warn them or not, they will not believe. God has set a seal on their hearts and on their ears according to his law. And on their eyes is a veil, and on the day of judgment a great torment awaits them.